Go for it, Weston.
Welcome, everyone, to MS Office Hours. It is Thursday, March 13th. Let me please introduce our hosts.
Hello, everybody. My name is Heather Cox.
Hi, all. I'm Stephanie Stevens.
And I'm super excited because good old Nick Connon here is one of my fabulous team members. And what I was using Copilot to cross-check is to make sure I could inform you that his name is Nick Connon and not Nick Cannon. He does not have 12 children. Okay.
That I'm aware of.
However, he does
That he's aware
have
of.
2 cats that he loves and adores, and he will show us all the time. So Nick, though, is going to share a couple of different things with us. As you saw, if you got the message, it's a 2-for-1 deal. So Nick is going to give us some info, and the show is yours, sir.
Thank you for that, Heather and Stephanie. Hey, everybody. Very excited to be here. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Nick Connon. That is not Nick Cannon. I do have two things in common, I guess, with him, though. Neither of us are married to Mariah Carey, and we've both been professional rappers. I just worked at a toy store at Christmas time, so wrapping presents, not necessarily rapping lyrics. Yeah, and so a little bit about me. I've been super excited my time here at Microsoft. I got my start in IT actually at the University of Technology Services desk at the University of South Carolina. So this is probably one of the culminations of my IT career. I get to now talk with all of you educational institutions about the cool stuff that's going on. A little bit background for me. I'm a Teams guy through and through. I love the platform. I think the devices are very cool as well. I'm talking to you through a Yay-Link collaboration bar right now. So if you ever want to talk Teams Phone, Teams Rooms, this is where I'm supposed to say I'm unified, Heather. But we're going to talk about today 2 things. For those Teams device admins on the call here, AOSP is your new firmware we need to be preparing for managing your Teams devices on Android. And then something that people have been asking for left and right for so long is SMS in Teams calling plans. Yes, SMS specifically in Teams calling plans. That is very important, but we're going to talk about both of these aspects today to get you guys prepped for going forwards because it's important and you need to do so. So let's go ahead and dive into it. We're going to cover, like Heather said, 2 topics. First and foremost will be a shorter section on how to prepare for the AOSP firmware being rolled out to your Teams devices on Android. This is Teams Rooms on Android, Teams phones, things like that. You're also going to look at preparing for SMS and Teams calling plans, and we're going to walk through the process that takes submitting a brand and even a campaign to the campaign registry for preparing for SMS and calling plans. So first things first, you keep hearing me say AOSP and device management. Well, what is AOSP? It is Android open source platform. So Intune now offers an AOSP mobile device management solution referred to as AOSP device management. At the end of last year, December 31st, 2024, Intune deprecated the support for Android devices with device administrator using GMS or Google Mobile Services. However, you'll notice that your Teams devices on Android didn't stop working, and that's because we've extended that support to make sure that we can prepare for this transition to this new firmware. This new firmware and MDM platform portion here is going to be used for all of your Android-based Teams devices, so IP phones, panels, MTRs, and anything that enrolls in Intune. So that's the first caveat, or at least an important thing to talk about. If you're not enrolling your devices, your Teams Android devices in Intune today, if you've removed that portion of the license out of it, there's a lot less prep work you're going to need to worry about for this one. So we're going to mainly focus that for those of you that are leveraging Intune for device management and enrolling your Android devices. AOSP device management will be replacing Android Device Administrator and will be used in lieu of Google Android Enterprise because these Teams devices running Android do not need access or is not supported having that Google Mobile Services kind of connection there. So that's what AOSP is. Why are we talking about it? Well, we have Google has deprecated Android Device Administrator. There's now Android Enterprise. And so we needed a replacement management solution. And so the AOSP device management platform is going to be where we're building all of our future innovation, richer compliance, management, security scenarios and everything there, dynamic enrollment, all sorts of neat stuff that we maybe couldn't have done through Device Administrator. It is more reliable and more stable than Device Administrator was as a platform there. And we won't have to push out a firmware update to update the device management on this like we needed to do before. So really quickly, what do you need to do to prepare for it? Well, there are 3 steps that you need to do. We're going to skip a couple bullets to talk about it. The first things first, for those Teams device admins on the call, you need to create an AOSP enrollment profile in Intune. That's it. You just set up this profile. We're going to look at that here on the next slide. Once you've got that put in place, if you're not leveraging Intune at all for your Teams devices, like we said, you can just apply the firmware. But if you're leveraging Intune and applying configuration and compliance policies to your devices, we want to make sure that we're also recreating those as AOSP configuration and compliance policies there. So like I said, though, if you're not using Intune for your Teams devices, then you can simply just go and push out the AOSP update. There will be no problems with it trying to enroll in Intune, as they are not going to be set to enroll there. The nice thing about this, and the important part, and the reason I'm bringing this to your attention about getting these, if you're getting the AOSP enrollment profiles created, if you are using Intune to manage your devices today, is that if you push this firmware out and you don't already have the AOSP firmware or the AOSP enrollment profile configured, the devices are going to get logged out as part of that upgrade process. And I don't think any of us want to lace up our shoes and have to go around touching all the various different Teams Android devices there. So putting in place this enrollment profile ahead of time means that when you're ready to push out that AOSP firmware update, it will just hit it and you're good to go. What does that enrollment profile look like? This is it. It's really not a whole lot right now, right? You're going to give it a name, in this instance, AOSP Teams devices. We're going to set up this profile. The expiration date will automatically have a date of 65 years in the future. You don't have to change that. It's just going to make sure that going forwards, new devices are going to not have to worry about an expired token there. If you do adjust that timeline, make sure that you've got some calendar reminder somewhere ready to go that you need to extend that token as needed. Finally, for that, you just want to make sure you've got it set as enabled for Teams devices, and that's set. So like we said, and I'll go back one slide just to kind of cover on this. If you're not leveraging Intune for your Teams devices on Android, the only thing you need to do is push out that update. You don't need to worry about the enrollment profile. If you are managing your Teams devices on Android today or enrolling them in Intune, not necessarily managing, but enrolling them, you will need to make sure that you set up the AOSP enrollment profile prior to installing the update to your devices. They will get signed out and have to have physical interaction to get those signed back in. If you have any questions about this or any additional resources, we've got the full migration guide put up on learn.microsoft.com. AOSP device management for Teams devices FAQ is pretty great here as well, where you can take a look at this, and we've got a list of the release dates in the table there for when your firmware is out. That's a big thing to note. Not all of these are coming out at the same time, right? We're currently or constantly working on GAing these firmware updates for various different OEM partners and their models. So I know as of this month, there's some audio codes has now gone GA. And so we're working with customers to make sure that they're ready for that. So the AOSP device management for Teams devices FAQ link, go down that page a little bit. There's a table there. Keep an eye on that. That's where we'll be updating and putting in if it has been released at that time as well. I also wanted to make sure we linked this third resource as well. For those device administrators in our organizations here, if you've never seen the Teams device deployment playbook, you should definitely take a look at it. It's everything you need from start to finish to deploy out Teams devices in the best practice kind of configuration. And some things you'll notice as you go through this, if you'd followed the Teams device deployment playbook, you may have set up configuration and compliance profiles in Intune. And so this talks about why you'd want to make sure you get those set up for AOSP as well. So I'll circle back around to questions and chat about AOSP once we get through this. That's just the quick, long, and the short here. The idea here is we're pushing out this firmware. You'll know it's successful once it's done. There will be two new apps. There's an authenticator app and an Intune agent on these devices now, as opposed to that previously deprecated company portal app for that. So it's super exciting. If you're not, I want to re-clarify this. If you're not using Intune, if you're not enrolling your Teams devices in Intune, then you don't need to worry about the enrollment profile. The AOSP firmware update will deploy and those get updated. If you're enrolling these devices in Intune and using compliance and configuration policies from Intune, you do need to make sure that you have the AOSP enrollment profile set up and ready to go prior to pushing those updates out to those devices. So that's AOSP in a nutshell. I'll follow up at the end, of course, if we need to continue conversations or have any follow-ups. I am a unified resource, and I'm happy to have these follow-up discussions there. We're going to come to the little bit longer section here, and this is pretty brand new as of last month. This is hot off the presses, but yes, this has happened. Short message service in Teams calling plans. Again, very specific here for the Teams calling plans side of things here. So I'm going to start off here real quick with a little exercise. If I can have folks, you can just throw what you think it is in the chat here. We're going to go through a couple little definitions quiz. So first up, does anyone in the chat know what PSTN stands for? Go ahead and dump it in there if you do.
They seriously have to know.
All right, we got it. Public
Okay.
Switch Telephone Network. Awesome. That is correct. We're going to the reason I'm asking about these is we're going to have a couple things pop up here. Yep, Public Switched Telephone Network. Does anyone know? I gave this away when we went to the slides. SMS, short message service. Does anyone know what 10DLC stands for? And no, it's not all the additional maps that Halo released down the line after the fact. This one may not be as, KJ got it, 10-digit long code. That is correct. We'll talk about what that is here in a second, but it's a separate network for messaging. And then last, but certainly not least, and this one may not be as easy, does anyone know what A2P stands for? In this context, I guess that is probably a pretty helpful thing. App to person. All right. Sounds like some people have done their homework ahead of time there. It's exactly it. So application to person. So when we're talking about SMS within Teams calling plans, there are a few important things to be aware of here. So in the United States, the public switched telephone network, or the PSTN industry, requires that operators direct A2P, or application to person messaging, to their recipients through a specialized network known as the 10DLC, 10-digit long code network. And so the idea and the purpose behind this specialized network is to control application to person access to subscribers and reduce the chance of your business's A2P messaging being flagged as spam. So here's the overview of what is supported and who can use SMS in Teams calling plan. For users in the United States, including Puerto Rico and Canada, Teams calling plans will support sending and receiving SMS messages within the Teams chat. Users in the US and Canada can send SMS messages to numbers that can receive SMS messages and that are regionally associated to the recipients in the US or Canada. Teams users sending or receiving SMS messages outside of the US or Canada is not supported. And when we talk about the A2P, or that classification of messaging, all messaging to and from Microsoft Teams is considered business messaging, or non-consumer messaging, or application to person messaging. These references are going to be used interchangeably throughout our documentation, but most notably, SMS in Microsoft Teams is not categorized as consumer SMS messaging. So there's a whole lot of regulatory and compliance stuff we're going to kind of talk from a high level overview here, but it's important to understand these are like app to person, not consumer SMS messaging as you would be messaging with your friends. So the first thing that has to happen is we need to register to use the 10DLC network. So before you can transmit application to person messages into the 10DLC network and to the subscribers, the operators have to approve the following two aspects of the SMS sender's company. You have to basically prove the validity of your company as well as your intent for accessing the network. The way we do this is and the approving authority that does this is called the Campaign Registry, or TCR. They are the independent and approving authority used by 10DLC network operators to validate legitimate SMS messaging. As it stands today, and I don't expect this to change anytime soon, Microsoft is required to facilitate your registration with the Campaign Registry before you can enable Microsoft Teams calling plan numbers for SMS. So validity of company and the intent for accessing the network can distill down into two parts. You need to have a brand and you need to have a campaign. The brand is the identification and the validation of your company, and the campaign is the purpose and the context of your SMS operation. Again, the purpose of this network is to control this access and reduce the chance of these messages being flagged as spam. And so the campaign registry and participating carriers determine trust scores. And that's why they require this brand vetting in order to achieve higher trust scores for better message throughput and delivery rates. And typically, if you're outside the Russell 3000 list, we also have to go through that brand vetting. So I have a flow chart for you here we'll look at. It's just going to give us a brief look at kind of how that brand and campaign approval process goes through. And then we'll talk about those steps a little bit individually there. So this is all going to be initiated from the Teams Admin Center, and I will do a brief screen share here in just a moment for you. This starts from the Teams Admin Center, and you submit your brand. That gets sent off to the campaign registry. Once your brand has been approved, you'll get that notification back. You can then submit your campaign. Goes through the same approval process. Once you've received approval from that, you can then go through to the phone numbers and enable SMS on those calling plan numbers after that approval has been granted. So let's talk a little bit about that here. When you apply for brand approval, you're submitting legally identifiable information about your company to include your business ID, legal address, stock symbol if you've got it, a website. There's a few other things, and we'll look at what that form looks like here in just a moment. And all of that's required so that you can establish and get your brand approved. Once that's been approved, you then submit your campaign. And this is where you'll submit your SMS use cases. You also then have to submit message flow actions describing opt-in and opt-out words like reply stop to have this stop messaging and things like that. There's also an application to person SMS privacy statement that has to be configured, and an A2P SMS terms and conditions portion as well that gets configured there. So I'm going to take a quick pause here and do a transition over to an admin center here, and I can show you the first step here, which is creating a brand. I want you to see what this looks like and what's needed for that initial brand portion here. So give me one moment to transition over to that. Alrighty, so now we can see that we are in the Teams Admin Center. Like I said, right, we're coming out of the Teams Admin Center for this. And to get to this portion, we're going to go to Voice, and then we're going to go to Service Configuration. And once we're in there, we're going to see an SMS section here. And the first thing we can do is we can create our brand. And this is, again, that information that's being used to verify our organization. So I'll zoom in here a little bit so you can read it. This is going to be all of the information that we need to provide to verify our organization with these SMS network providers. Our brand display name, our company name, our tax ID issuing country, and our tax ID. And then we need to submit what kind of company are we? Are we a private company, a publicly traded company, a nonprofit organization? And then what segment do we align with within that brand here? Are we education, which is going to be the obvious answer for most people on this call throughout this. Is this gambling? Is this financial? Is this legal, et cetera? There are various regulatory pieces that I'm sure we could spend hours talking about for that portion, but you need to make sure all of this is accurate to your organization when this is submitted. You'll then go through, fill out some contact information, put your business's legal address here, and then, of course, accept our terms and conditions here. Once you've done that, you can then submit it. It's important to note, once you've submitted it, you as the admin cannot pull it back here from the Teams Admin Center. If there's any mistakes or you need to make an update or change on that due to something that wasn't filled out correctly, we can raise a ticket with the the TNS support team, the telephone number support team, and they can help facilitate getting that taken care of and rectified. So you'll see here that once that brand has been done, then the campaign portion will then light up and we can submit that campaign. The campaign is going to define what you are leveraging or why you're leveraging the service and what your intent is to use SMS for outside of establishing that brand. And so I'm going to transition back over here to our presentation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. All righty. Yeah, so campaign approval portion, I will follow up later on once I have a little bit more information about that process too. We'll probably do a follow-up session for an actual demo of it as well. But those are the two main portions here. And one of the things to note with a brand and a campaign, each organization can have one brand and one campaign. We'll talk about that again here towards the end, but that's just important to note. You're not going to go spend 15 different campaigns in here. You'll have a brand, you'll have a campaign associated with your access to the 10 DLC or the 10-digit long code network. So what licensing do you need to have in play to leverage this, right? You've heard me say this is SMS and Teams calling plan this whole time. So in addition to registering your brand and campaign for access to the 10 DLC network, they also need to be licensed to use Teams. They need to be Teams phone enabled, and they need to have a Microsoft Teams calling plan license assigned to them. And then for that, we will then, once that's all set up, and then you can enable those phone numbers, inbound and outbound SMS messaging support will be included in your Teams calling plans for US, including Puerto Rico and Canada. So your follow-up question to this is, all right, Nick, how many SMS messages do we get with this? It's a great question, and it's actually a fun little concept to talk through here. We're talking about SMS message segments now, because the maximum size of a single SMS message determines the accounting for SMS messages here. And so a single SMS segment is 140 bytes, or 160 GSM 7-bit encoded standard text characters. Sounds like we're talking about short form communication there. When a sent SMS message exceeds that character limit, it gets split into multiple segments. That's why when you text from, say, an iPhone to an Android or vice versa, they've written out an entire paragraph in one message, and you're receiving it in a lot of different parts because it's getting sent as individual SMS messages or as message segments. So each message segment accounts for one Teams SMS message. So when we talk about usage and talking about how it goes towards the count of our a number of messages segments we have for a license, if you send a message that's 240 characters, we've gone beyond the 160 character count, and that would cost equivalent to 2 SMS messages in your billing for that. So you hear me talk about billing. What do you get with your calling plan license? So there are various aspects that you can enable Teams calling plans for your end users. You could be on a Teams calling plan pay-as-you-go solution. You could be on the domestic 120 plan, the domestic plus international plan, or a Teams phone plus calling plan bundle. So the number of allotted messages in a calling plan accounts for a total of inbound messages received plus outbound messages sent. As with calling plans, and just like your calling minutes, you're pooling at a tenant level. Same concept occurs here. So the number of SMS messages that are allocated per licensed user are pooled at the tenant level. Overage charges won't apply until the resources are pooled across all users' plans are consumed within the billing period. And we have some associated links to talk about overages there as well. So we talked about that, right? If you've got calling plan licenses, there's a lot of SMS messages are pooled for all of your users, and they can operate out of it. If you're on a pay-as-you-go calling plan license, then you're billed per use with SMS messages there. Again, incoming and outgoing messages are considered accounted for in that SMS usage. And then another important thing here is pooling also only applies to identical calling plans. So if you have a mix of calling plans, some pay-as-you-go calling plan licenses, right, those are going to be billed per use if they're assigned to someone, versus if you've got a team of 25 people on this side that have domestic calling plan licenses, that pool of messages applies to those identical calling plan licenses. Something that's important to note, there are rate limits alongside this as well. And this is to ensure that the 10-digit long code network's high quality of service is consistent with provided SLAs. The operators, you can see here, enforce rate limits for the number of messages that can be sent from a TCR, or the campaign registry registered entity. There are a wide range of rate limits that are dependent on several factors, to include the tier of your brand, the 10 DLC operator that's sending the SMS on your user's behalf, as well as the use case of the campaign. The operator that provides the recipient's SMS service is the operator that enforces the rate limit. So that's very important to see there, right? If the operator that provides the recipient's SMS service is the operator that enforces that rate limit. And we can see here in the table here an example, or the rate limits here. AT&T compared to T-Mobile, you'll notice here that AT&T has a max SMS per minute per campaign rate limit, whereas T-Mobile, as the operator, has a max SMS per day per brand limit there. And so you would fall in under either a low volume or a high volume kind of rate there. And so if you're in that low volume pillar, you'll have 75 SMS message segments sent per minute per campaign, and 2,000 if you're for AT&T, and then 2,000 for T-Mobile max SMS per day per brand. Though depending if you're qualifying in for high volume, and then this ultimately depends on your brand score. AT&T, if you're Class F, supports 240 SMS per minute per campaign. Class D will be 2,400, and Class B is 4,500. From the T-Mobile side, if you're a low-mid brand score, and that's 10,000 messages per day per brand. High-mid is 40,000 messages per day per brand, and 100,000 for that top tier of brand there. If an operator's rate limit cap regularly blocks your users and their high volume of SMS messaging is warranted, you can apply for a rate limit increase by contacting our telephone number service desk. So they'll be your friends if you need to reach out, and we'll work on getting that, increasing that rate limit. Something to note here as well, that the price of an SMS message, again, is accrued per message segment. And so that per message segment charge is based on the country or region of the message, as we show in this table. So sending a message, there's a usage fee right there. That is the surcharge, $0.0075 US dollars for United States and Puerto Rico cent, and receive messages, same there, $0.0075 US dollars. In Canada, 0.01028 Canadian dollar fee for sending messages or receiving messages there. The reason this is, US, Puerto Rico, and Canadian 10-digit long code operators apply a surcharge for processing SMS messages that are sent to and or received by users on their network. It's important to note there, for outbound messages, the carrier of the recipient's number determines the surcharge, and for inbound messages, the carrier of the sender's number determines the surcharge there. If you want to read a little bit more about per message segment pricing, you have that link in the slide at the bottom there as well. Depending on what kind of billing account type will determine your cost management method. You can go to the Teams Admin Center, go to Analytics and Reports to get an SMS usage. For my Teams admins on the call, I want some reactions here. If you notice that the PSTN and SMS usage report is out of preview and it's been separated into two separate reports now. It's very exciting to see that now. Yeah, I got some claps everywhere there. So in this instance, right, you can monitor and manage costs that are incurred for usage based on the type of billing account there. So if you've got a Microsoft Online Service Agreement, or you're going through a legacy CSP, the cost management method will be prepaid communications credits there, or if you have a customer agreement via Director Enterprise, you can do prepaid cost management in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And if you have a Microsoft customer agreement via a cloud solution partner, then there will be post-paid usage charges through that managed with the partner there. Some considerations and limitations here. Again, we'll be wrapping up with this. One brand and one campaign are allowed per tenant. By default, a campaign supports enabling up to 49 Microsoft calling plan numbers to be SMS enabled. If you need more than 49 numbers to be enabled for SMS, in that link to the Step 2 and Create campaign, there's a process to submit a message to the telephone number services service desk, and they will work with you to increase that limit of numbers that can be enabled for SMS there. Currently, Teams calling plans support sending SMS where it's a 10-digit long code. The sender type is a 10-digit log code. Teams calling plans do not currently support toll-free numbers, short codes, or alphanumeric sender IDs at this time. Further prerequisites and next steps, like we talked about as well, of course, there's going to that Step 1 and Create brand. SMS messages in Teams are supported with excuse me, one-on-one chat conversations. MMS, attachments, emojis, stickers, and GIFs at this time are not currently supported. And if you want to provide end users with some documentation, that link at the bottom of the slide here will be to direct them for sending and receiving SMS in Microsoft Teams. I've got some additional resources here as well. The first link is the direct link to our documentation page. So I'll run you through an overview and then walking you through creating your brand, creating your campaign, enabling SMS for your individual users. Once you've gotten your brand and campaign approval, you then need to go to those phone numbers and enable the SMS on it, as well as the privacy and terms template and our policy for SMS in Microsoft Teams. So I'll open it up here. We'll try and get a few questions in there as well. I know that I've had some lovely coworkers in chat running a point for Q&As there, but I do have to make a shameless plug on Heather's behalf. I am a unified resource. So please, if we need to have some further conversations going forwards, let's get some times and advisories on the schedule, and let's get you guys successfully prepared for the AOSP firmware migration, as well as if you guys want to talk more SMS and Teams calling plans.
Well, hot damn, do you know what you're talking about, Nick Connon?
I learned something, and I feel like I've been doing Teams voice stuff for like every one of the 4 years that I've been here. I also learned how many crazy people there are that say GIF instead of GIF. And no, we shan't discuss it. But
I know,
Nick,
like,
stellar
literally,
job, dude.
we're at Q&A, and because you said that right at the end, the Q&A has become, how is it pronounced?
I know. But honestly, I think this was really helpful information, and I know the community feels the same. There are so many small questions that were answered in what you shared, so hopefully this was super helpful for everybody on the call. Feel free, once we get the recording up, to share this out with, you know, the telco teams at your institutions who I know are like thick in the weeds. And I will just say, not working on Heather's team and not a unified resource, that as an account executive, I definitely rely heavily on your team, Heather, and others who are on this call. Like Jesse has done a lot for us. Anthony obviously has done a lot for us. I'll give a shout out to Amy Bandy Taylor, who's joined the call a lot.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is one of those great things that comes with the full tilt, you know, usage of a platform. And, you know, any way that we can help tap into that and get better usage along the line is great.
Yeah, let me retweet. I'm just hitting it home today. Yeah, I obviously plug my people all the time, but to say what Stephanie said there, I love the folks that show, Amy and Anthony and all the crew that come and help us out. We have amazing resources on the Microsoft side that are here. Oh, Jason was hiding. I get to talk to Jason next week. But thank you, Nick, for all of that. There was a question, and yes, specifically for this, Nick shared a lot of links in here, and resources. So yes, we will get you this for sure. We'll get you a copy of this so that you have all of that information, all those links. I know that was Leland's question, but Oren, did we get this question answered about given the 49 user limit is enabling
just answered
it?
it. Yep.
Okay,
That's
you
just
did
the
answer it. Got
default
it.
limit.
Perfect.
You just when
Okay.
you submit your campaign, you can request for more there just by default. That's the tenant portion there.
Perfect. But yes, we will make sure you get the links because there were lots of great references in there. So as always, we love y'all and we're so happy that you were here. And selfishly, I'm also very excited about next week because there's a school I know of, and they might be coming to visit us, and they may go by the name of the Ohio State University. So please don't be mean if you don't like the Ohio State University, but please join us either way, because they actually have done some really great things and would love for you to hear about their story. So yeah, we're not taking spring break. Not until later. And Stephanie is frozen. I thought she was just like smiling, like very kindly and demurely at me, but she looks frozen to me. So I don't know if she's frozen to anybody else. But yes, whatever school you support, come and learn because it's a great story. And we will hopefully see you next week. So bye, y'all.
Thank y'all.